व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ तत्सत्। So we are doing the third chapter of Shiva Sutra, and we have had some elaborate discussions. Those of you who are joining for the first time, I just want to summarize it in a capsule form. So the whole thing is that we can be liberated only when we have Atmajnana, and there are different levels of sadhana to attain that state of equanimity or your union with yourself. That self-realization, whatever is glorified in Upanishads, in Vedas, and also in different esoteric texts, including the Kashmiri Saiva philosophical texts, and Shiva Sutra is one of them. So we have looked at the Sambhavapaya, which is highly meditative, and that's for the advanced practitioners. And the next one is Shaktopaya, where you see yourself as different from the Supreme Divine, but at the same time you want to attain unity. That chapter also we have finished, and we are in the third chapter. The first chapter, the first sutra in Shiva Sutra says Chaitanyam Atma. There is nothing called consciousness and consciousness of the Atma. Atma itself is pure consciousness, and we had a long discussion on that. We cannot return to the same thing. Here, the first sutra in the third chapter, this is called Arnavopaya. This is the preliminary, or you can say, the stage in which all of us are doing sadhana to establish ourselves in that state of divinity. And this construct, this whole consciousness where we are working right now in the beginning phase is called a restricted limited consciousness. The word which is used to refer to is Anu. It's like you have atomic consciousness. Anu in the sense restricted and limited. Compared to what? The vast, unlimited, infinite consciousness, which is our Swarupa. Now, when we identify with the body and the mind, our emotions, what we want to do, starts this whole game of imposing restrictions on our consciousness. I have told you earlier, and I want to reiterate this whole thing here, that in Advaita Vedanta as well as in Trika Saivism, they say that we are Baddha and Mukta at the same time. We are in prison so far as we feel we are restricted. In Vedanta, they tell you a story all the time that there's a lot of people who carry these parrots, right, for fortune telling. So they tie a very invisible wire to the legs of that bird, that parrot, and the parrot tries to fly away. And then it flies away, then it cannot go away, so it has to come back. And after some time, they keep the door open, but it doesn't fly away because it believes it cannot fly away. That is the Baddhavastha. It's actually free, but it considers itself to be in a cage. And most of us in this state of what we call a state of being in a cage are essentially accepting our bondage, which is our own creation. And therefore, we can restore our purity of the self, restore the purity of our consciousness only when we realize how to do it. And the Arnava Upaya, this third chapter, is about how to start with the basics. The first sutra, then, we have already done it, is called Atma Chittam. What is that Atma? Chittam. But you said earlier that pure consciousness is Atma. Now you are saying Chittam, the mind is Atma. He says, yeah, with these impositions or restrictions, that Chitta means the Jivatma is Chitta, because you have the Sukshma Sarira which travels. What is the Sukshma Sarira made of? You have Sthula Sarira, the Annamaya Kosha, and the Manamaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, that is the Sukshma Sarira. It consists of the Pancha Pranas, Pancha Jnana Indriyas, Pancha Karma Indriyas, 15 plus Mana Buddhi or Manobuddhi, Chitta, Ahankara, all four, 17 or 19, these together constitute the subtle self of the Sukshma Sarira. When this Annamaya Kosha declines and falls dead, the Sukshma Sarira carries forward. The Buddhists also don't believe in Atma, but they believe that the karmic energy travels. Otherwise, they would not accept Karma Siddhanta. Um, there would be no memory of good and bad karmas we do to influence how we behave in our next birth. So they also believe they have a concept of alaya vijnana. There's a kind of hard disk where all our stories, all our activities, all our thoughts are stored. And that sort of explains how we keep traveling forward. Coming back to our text, once we have Chittam Atma, this was clarified that there is no conflict, because here by Chittam we are referring to the Atma which is having a upadhi. Like for example, you're a professor, you're an administrator, you're an entrepreneur. These are names and forms imposed on us. So you are the elder daughter or elder son, and you have a lot of responsibility in a marriage function, and then you are in the office and you're talking like a completely different person. These are identities which we imposed on us, and we are not these identities. We are not these names and forms. So Chitta Matma. And then he's saying the second verse that we were doing is Jnanam Bandhaha. The same sutra is there also in the first chapter. And we had already discussed that how this could be explained in two ways. One is Chaitanyam Atma Ajnanam Bandha. If we make it one sentence. Agyan, the source of bondage is ignorance. But what if we actually don't do that sandhi? We say Jnanam Bandha. We had a discussion also in the previous class that knowledge which is not liberating is a source of bondage. Imperfect knowledge. So in the knowledge form, please understand, in Vedanta also this is very, very important. Knowledge of something is knowledge, but in Vedanta or in Trika Saivism, that jnana which is liberating is not jnana of something. It's jnana swarupa. Like we have a torchlight and we enter into a room and it's a dark thing and there are so many objects. We spray the torchlight and we see there is a flower vase, there is a table lamp which is not being used at that moment. There is no power in it. Suddenly power comes, and that particular study lamp lights everything in the room. Who declares the presence of that lamp? No one declares. The lamp declares its own presence. It's Swayam Prakasha. Similarly, the Atma declares its own presence. Now, that Atma is not knowledge of anything. The word knowledge doesn't apply there. We use the word Jnana. That Jnana is not Savikalpaka. That Jnana is not Jnana of something. It's self-same. It declares itself. That Chaitanya Swarupa. Therefore, a lot of when they say Sachidananda Brahma Jnana Swarupaha, Prajnanam Brahma, Ayam Atma Brahma, all these words are there, that it is Jnana Swarupa in what sense? When I am talking to you, you're listening to me, just imagine so much of duality. I'm speaking about a subject and there is an audience. The moment I start speaking, there is duality. There is a speaker, there is something which is being spoken about, there is some effort being made. So then we had already discussed it before. At the level of the paravak, there's no sound, there's no cognitive activity. That is the ultimate stage. Para Pashyanti Madhyama Vaikhari. Vaikhari is the state of this audible speech. When you're making some noise, somebody is listening. Go inside, you have Madhyama, and you go further, Pashyanti. Some cognitive activities, but the ultimate thing is paravak. It's not varnatmaka, it's not savdatmaka, it's beyond all this. That consciousness is the ultimate thing. Why am I mentioning all this? The Jnana Bandha is referring to a lower level of consciousness where the consciousness is caught up in duality. So it sees itself and sees the whole samsara. That is how it, talks about a reality like we do as scientists. This is a later stage. In the initial stage, there are no elements. For example, if you pick up a book on, like organic chemistry, the first question is where from carbon came. And they will tell you initially there was hydrogen, helium, it's going on. And then at some point, the carbon emerged out of these process only. With their, their valency, their atomic number, all these are different. How come all these new atomic numbers manifested out of what? What is the nimitta and what is the upadan? What is the material cause? What is the efficient cause? There starts the complex scientific theory. Similarly here, in the beginning, the Ishvara, he is both upadana and nimitta karana, efficient cause and also the material cause. And Vedanta is Maya, which is upadana cause. The Prakriti, which is upadana karana, nimitta karana is Ishvara. And Param Brahma, the Nishkriya, Nirguna Brahma, Suddha Brahma is neither karana nor karya. It is beyond all that. But here, in the Trika Saivism, they don't take that Advaita Vedanta style of explanation. They say that no, Paramashiva has created this whole universe. So when you say Paramashiva has created this whole universe, who are we? We are limited, right? We are frustrated, we are not happy. Who are we? They're saying that no, this whole duality is a game of Paramashiva. He's created this. This is Atma Gopanatmika Leela. He's hiding himself. Where is he hiding? In us, in everything. We are not being able to see that Paramashiva Tattva. That's where we are in bondage, and that's why this word bondage is saying. So, Sattvasto Rajasastascha Tamasto Gunavedakaha Evam Paryatate Dehi Sthana Sthanantaram Brajet. So, it goes from place to place. That Chaitanya Mahatma, it can't go anywhere. Why? That is Suddha Chaitanya. Once you have Trigunatmika Maya, so you have Sattvika, Rajasika, Tamasika, these three gunas are playing out, and influenced by them, we do Punya Papa Karmas, and then there is a system of reward and punishment, and we go from one life to another, and we pass through a series of experiences that we call our happiness, our sadness, our success, our failure, and it moves on. That's what they're saying. So this particular Atma has become Anu, and this is essentially a matter of perception, a matter of acceptance of your limitedness. You are not limited, but you are accepting your limitedness. And so we had done that summary commentary. I'm just reading through it quickly. So he's saying, Anurupasya Atmanaha Bandhanam Darshayati Jnanam Bandha. How does that Anurupaka Atma is in bondage? He's saying because of the way it thinks, the way it connects with reality. The source of all our misfortune is actually the way we understand things. Sukha Dukha Moha Nishchaya Vikalapa Abhimanadi Prabritihi Tatha Tad Uchita Bhedo Abhasa Uchita Bheda Abhabhasa Rupam Yad Jnanam Vartate. So you have bondage, we have attraction, we have repulsion, we have different ways in which the mind connects or withdraws from external and internal reality. Sometimes you don't like any memory. Sometimes you lovingly remember a scene. As a child, you had got a prize. But do you remember a moment of your embarrassment very happily? No, you push that away. So we have this attraction and repulsion within and outside. And this particular movement of the mind, and then we move forward, there is some knowledge being produced, and that is reproducing itself. It's also causing a lot of activities to take place. That jnana is the source of bondage. Tadeva anurupasya atmanaha bantaha. The Satchidanand Swarupa Atma cannot be in bondage. How come it's in bondage? The sunlight cannot be in bondage. But then you put a mirror, the sunlight is reflected on that, and you say this is this tiny sun, as if you've bound it up. Space is there, and suddenly I say the space within this particular highlighter or pen, this is the pen space. So I put one adjective, then I limit that space. Similarly, the Jivatma is one way of presuming that Atma has become limited within one human being with the gunas and other things. That is what I'm saying. Tadrisha Bandhana Baddho Anavatmana Anavatma Nana Yunusi Avagamanam Karoti. It comes and goes, it's born and it dies. Nana Yunishu, sometimes as a human being, sometimes as a plant, sometimes as a man and a woman, and a rich man and a poor man. All kinds of forms we assume. Tathacha Uktam Sri Tantra Sadbhave. Tantra Sadbhava is sort of quoting from there. Sattvasto Rajasastascha Tamaso Gunavedakaha Evam Paryatate Dehi Sthana Sthanantaram Rajana. Dehi is the one who lives in Deha. Navadvare Pure Dehi, he says in Bhagavad Gita. Dehi is that Atma which seems to be, captured by, limited and caged in this body. Actually, it's Bhivu, it's everywhere. Your Atma, my Atma, his Atma, her Atma, these are imaginations. We are but one Atma, but we appear as splintered, right? We just appear as splintered into different names and forms. Tathacha aha Spandakarikayam, that famous Spandakarika text in which Tanmatrudaya Rupena Manoham Buddhiravartina Puryashtakena Sansarada Sansaddha Taduttam Pratyodbhavam. This is from Spandakarika. We will look at it specifically. How the moment words are born and then there is Bheda Vritti, you look at this is X, that is Y, and then you enter into that Bheda Prathatmaka Pravritti and Veda Prathatmaka Manashika Vritti. You accept dualities. In the highest state of meditation or enlightenment, when you are sitting, you have no thoughts. The moment you have a thought, think about it. So you are sitting in meditation early in the morning, you are in the best state of your mind. Somebody rings the bell. You wake up, you go open the door. There's someone else, maybe milk, maybe fruits, maybe flowers. You had ordered something early morning, he's delivering. Then you go into the kitchen and it's dirty. Then you get angry, who has made it so? This. The details come in and snatch away from you that consciousness of unity. So the moment we are trapped in the details, you come out of it, then we lose that. That's what we say, I lost my concentration, I lost my purity, my spirituality. So the more and more, so we withdraw ourselves. Bhagavad Gita and many of these texts says that you can practice it in a way that despite all the movements outside, you can stay reconnected, and then we have to make efforts. And that is what this third chapter is going to teach us. How do we do the efforts? We cannot sit directly in meditation. That is how in the Arnava Upaya, what are the things? Okay, you will have a yantra, you will have a Devi Devata, you will have Anushtana, you have a temple, you do. So you are using external objects. The external objects which distract you from your purity, you'll say, fine, now that I have lost my inner calm, I would use these diversity around me to return to that inner calm. And what diversity? So there's music and the phone, there's a call, there's some people, there are students, and there are situations, and there's a traffic jam. All these are distracting us, and we replace them with a set of external variables in order to transform our consciousness and travel inwards. So you play some music which is soothing. You do some mantrocharanam. Maybe you go to a temple, then there's a big crowd, don't go there. So using external props, otherwise they are disturbing, then you are choosing variables so that you are guiding yourself in order to facilitate your own inward journey to your pure self. So this beginning journey is actually the most important one, because we start with this. That's very critical. That's why you're doing this third chapter. Then he's saying, अर्थात पूर्यष्टकस्य द्वे रूपे स्तः एकं सूक्ष्मम् अपरस्य स्थूलम्. Puryashtaka, so you have these pancha pranas, pranapana, vyana, udana, samana. Then you have manabuddhi, ahankara. Puryashtaka. It's sukshma sarira, sometimes it's annamaya kosha, sthula sarira. There are two forms this puryashtaka takes. Tatra sukshmena puryashtake sangruddha avritaha. You see, tell me who is actually in bondage. So, physically we are free. Somebody was telling, we were discussing about AI with a young student, and so in future what's going to happen? We're going to have machine learning, so everything is would be controlled by the people who are in the STEM field: science, technology, engineering, mathematics, artificial intelligence. They are the wizards, they are the new gods. So they will be controlling everything. But are you actually in slavery the way there was slavery in the Middle Ages in the world? No. However, you have no real freedom. Every step of yours are being monitored. You see, if you do some satsang or anything on your phone, and then you'll see in YouTube, some proper will come, some meditation music. Why? They're the artificial. There's no one listening to you. Artificial intelligence. It watches you and then proposes what kind of book you read. You talk about some heart problem, immediately some medicinal ads will come. You buy this instrument and blah blah blah, BP medicine. This is going to be dominated by AI. Now return to our subject matter. You have this physical body. Obviously, if you are injured, you are not having freedom, right? You get constrained. Old age, ill health, some pain in the body. These are all sources of our restrictions and limitations. What are the biggest source of restriction? Biggest is actually the way we think. The software gets corrupted. The best computer that you purchased will become inoperative. It's not going to work. It's going to be dysfunctional. So we got to pay attention to the software aspect. That is what he's saying. So puryashtake, sukshmena puryashtake sangridha avritaha. So our self-awareness is kind of covered up in the sukshma puryashtaka. And that is at the level of cognitive activity, at the level of emotional activity. Atayeva paravasaha san. So you are actually not controlled by anyone. This mind is whose mind? Your mind. But we sometimes say, my mind is unable to concentrate. But whose mind is it anyways? Long back, I remember, I once told one Buddhist I met on online, I said that sometimes these ideas come and disturb you. And the person laughed and said, ideas come and disturb you. Where do they come in? Where do they enter? I said, the mind. Whose mind? Whom are they disturbing? You are cheating yourself with this language. You are the owner of the mind. Some ideas are coming and disturbing. Whose ideas? They are walking around in the streets, on the highway, and they entered you? No. So it's your own creation. You don't want to take responsibility. We don't want to take responsibility. And that is beautiful. I really loved the way I was kind of challenged to think more responsibly. So we try to externalize our weaknesses by saying that this is an emotion which is disturbing me. This is an old sanskara which is coming. End of the day, it's all our game. We are the boss. This is our kingdom. Therefore, he's saying paravasaha san. Actually, we are not under control of anyone, but we accept that we are under the control of thoughts, of a certain way of thinking. We say this is a mindset. Whose mind is it anyway? That we are scared of the mindset. Then what he says, paravasaha san tadutha pratyodbhavam, and then all kinds of moods and thoughts and constructions, cognitive activities, whatever is emerging. Sukha sukha vedana rupam, and sometimes you're happy and you're sad and certain feelings that you have. Bhogam asnati, and then you connect with things. You like it, you dislike it, you have raga, you have dvesa. Tasya cha puryashtakasya bhavat tadvasa sariri sansara dharma papnuti. Then we get bodies of different kinds, depends on what kind of pratyas you are entering into and how that sort of come and attack us. Now let's broaden it. Let's broaden it and think about it. Now the most important is, what are the two aspects of this Anava Mala, that impurity associated with a limited existence, a limited consciousness? How do I define it? Can I understand it a little more? So first thing is saying, Atmani Anatma and Anatmani Atma. Just look at it. What is not self, we see the self in it. What is Anatma? What is non-self? This is my car. You are not the car. So car is not your Atma. Then he says, my car. So you have Tadatmya Adhyasa, you have identification. And then you were sitting, somebody came and sat there because you had left your chair. Oh my God, you're sitting here? I was sitting here. So you have Anatmani Atma Buddhi. Atmani Anatma Buddhi. This is my mind. You are externalizing it. And you see the Brahman, for example, or the self, or the Paramashiva as somebody who is outside of you, different from you. Therefore, he's saying, now Atma me Anatma ka jnana. This is my body and kind of thing. And then you have in the Anatma, the body and mind, you have Atma Jnana. So there is kind of a reverse thing happening at two places. And therefore, he's saying that, look here, this whole thing that we have been troubled by is not fundamentally real. Look at it. It's beautiful. The idea is beautiful. That is there in Mana eva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayoho. Bondage and freedom. Who is at the root of it? The mind. Mana eva manushyanam. So if human beings are concerned whether they are happy or sad, they're liberated, or they feel they are imprisoned, at the root of it is their mind. And that's what he's trying to say. That is, I was mentioning, Jnanam Bandha, it's said in the first chapter, second sutra, and third chapter, second sutra, also is Jnanam Bandha. Jnanadhishanam Atrika, that we have done it. How do we have knowledge? With language. Where from language comes? The Varna Matrikas, the alphabets. Each one of them is called a Varna Matrika. And these Varnas are all Satyatmika. If you look at the face of Ma Kali, she's wearing these heads and we get frightened. It's a very symbolic thing, very powerful occult meaning hiding there. She's wearing these heads and they are all O-A-E-E. 50 heads represent 50 alphabets. This is very symbolic, very cryptic, very difficult to get. So the way our thoughts are not correctly telling us what is the reality, at the root of it is these Varnamatrikas. We've had a long discussion. I'm not going there. And therefore, we have been told this is how Ajnanam iti tatra adyam chaitanya sphara rupini atmani anatmata jnanam punaha anatmani. जो अज्ञान का कारण है उसमें ज्ञान ढूंढ रहे हैं, जिसमें ज्ञान है उसको हम अज्ञान मानते हैं. This is how it happens. Therefore, we are kind of struck with a very difficult situation in which Kshemaraja in his commentary says there are two aspects of it. How Shiva becomes Jiva. This Brahman becomes Jiva. How does that happen? He's saying Swatantriya Hani and Apurna Manyata. You ask any girl, she'll tell you These things happen when she gets married to a traditional family. Most of the women used to suffer this. Men also suffered it. They will never confess. When you grow up and you get married, you have a job. So you have Swatantra Hani. You are no more a student, no more free. You have to go to office. And then you have a relationship, you have children, you have some Swatantra Hani, no freedom. Then Apurna Manyata, all the time you think, I'm not full, I'm not final, I'm not happy. You have a sense of insufficiency. So this Swatantra Hani and Apurna Manyata, where Paramashiva is Swatantra and Purna. We started with this mantra, Punnamadaha Punnamidam. It's Purna. However, as a result of the self-imposed game of Lord Shiva, his Pancha Shaktis that he has, they become Pancha Kanchukas, veiling powers. They cover things up. The same jnana unravels, the same jnana veils. The jnana which veils is Bandhakaraka. The jnana knowledge that unveils is Mokshakaraka. At the root of it is jnana. That is what he's trying to say. Bandha moksho navidyate sarvatreva shivatvataha. What do you mean by bandha and moksha? मुक्त कौन है, आबद्ध कौन है, सब शिव है. शिव तत्व ही सत्य है. There is nothing else which is ultimately real. All of us are pure and divine. Nobody is evil, nobody is good. So everyone is saying, no, that's not what is being meant here in a very normal, literal sense. We are talking about the Paramarthika Satya. If you look at the rainbow in the sky, you see 7 colors, and that's real. But then if you're looking at them as sunlight, they have no colors. It's because the prism or the water droplets which work as prism that you have the scattering take place. Otherwise, oh, it's unified sunlight, there are no colors. That is how he's trying to explain that Bandha Mukhyo Navidyate, they are not different from each other. Sarvatra eva sivatvataha. Everything is Siva alone. And then Saiva esa sacha sansara bandha mukhyo atah stito. Vivinna Siva pakhyetu satye dadhya paratrano. Pratida matramevatra tavata bandha mukhyata. This bondage and liberation are not Paramarthika Satya. If only Brahman is Satya, only Paramashiva is Satya. Bondage and Mukhya are different from Lord Shiva? No. Then how do you say this duality, this multiplicity? Appearances. This is how they appear. And if we can see the fundamental underlying reality, that would be the way to liberation from this complex diversity where we are being waylaid, blindfolded into a life of sometimes apparent happiness, sometimes apparent sadness. Not real sadness. We are never really sad or happy. We are Ananda Swarupa. That is our essential nature. Now, there are different schools of thought and different views on this idea of what is Bandha and Moksha. Let's look at it a little because it's very, very enlightening, because we can familiarize yourself and educate ourselves. What is this idea of bondage and what is this idea of liberation? Both Vedanta and Sankhya Mata, as well as Trika Shaiva Darshana, they all say that realization is not about building muscles, it's not about siddhis, it's not about having some occult powers, it's essentially being aware of your essential nature, your Swarupa. So the Sankhyas who believe in this Purusha and Prakriti, Purusha is Chaitanya Swarupa and for them Prakriti is Jada. She's like a dancer who comes on the stage for a bhoga apavargartham of the Purusha. So the Purusha gets trapped in the samsara. Then it finally realizes, I'm none of these, we're kahan phas gaya. then the Purusha gets liberated. Prakriti or Maya role is over. It creates bhoga, which is illusory. Purusha realizes it's not meant for this, then he gets liberated. There are many ways in which this is discussed, that you have Shiva, Shakti is one entity. When Shiva sees Shakti as different, and then he plays in the hands of Prakriti. So they say the story, the Sankhya, is that Parvati keeps troubling Lord Shiva and he's harassed. And then suddenly he closes his eyes in Kailash and enters into Mahasamadhi. Where is Parvati? Sitting right on his lap. He's not disturbed anymore. He has entered into himself. That's a kind of Sankhya thing, a dualistic thing. Vedanta says this Maya is Parikalpana. Trikadarsana says the same thing, that this Maya is not independent. The only difference is that Maya, Prakriti, etc. are called Jada Rupa in both Vedanta and Sankhya. But Trikadarsana, the Maya or Prakriti, the Matri Shakti, is Shiva Rupa only. It's Chin, it's Chinamayi, it's Chaitanyamayi, it's not different. It's elevated this whole consciousness. The Sakta Parampara is kind of elevated to a very high level of equality, as that whole thing is just one, and you have to understand it. And therefore, it's much more holistic and much more inclusive than other schools of thought. So here, Jnanam Tattu Vijaniyat Yena Atma Bhasate Sphuta. The Atma appears as if it's XYZ. Once you have that Tattvataha, right thing, it becomes one. And that is the only way you can get liberated. Tataha Jnanam Eva Paramartham Mokshahitu. The ultimate, what is the source of liberation? Rite Jnanam na Kaivalya. Kaivalya Prapti only through knowledge. A lot of people say, what is bhakti, what is yoga and sadhana? Yes, these are all sahakaris. You have to do some lab work, you have to do everything, but ultimately the coursework is required and everything, but ultimately you have to do your dissertation. Of course, without an undergrad degree, without a master's degree, you can't write this dissertation. You can't do a postdoc. Once you're in postdoc, okay, you are your own guide, you have your topic, you work on it. That is the highest level of sadhana. Similarly, you start with these different kinds of anushthanas. You can keep doing bhakti, that's not a problem. But ultimately, vichara, you have to have that tattva darshana in order for liberation to happen. Asya chitta surupasya anvatmanaha jnanam bandhaha. Kiska jnana bandh hai? Shiv ji ka jnana bandh hai, bandhkarak hai. Shiv ji is jnana surupa. That's not bondage. When in a faulty way, in an inadequate way, we see ourselves, like for example, I tell you, a person is having some kind of a depression. You talk to her. That girl will tell you that, sir, all these boys are yelling at me. My friends are not happy, not good with me. So she'll tell you everything, but she's having some cognitive activities. And what do you think about her? You are a counselor. You know, then you say, okay, my baby, she's a little disturbed. She's in stress. You don't say what she knows is not knowledge. What she knows is not appropriate knowledge. Similarly, when we have avivekataya, with lack of adequate discrimination, we are not being able to distinguish the right from wrong, what is paramartha satya and what is an apparent truth, then we are trapped in the apparent details, and that is the cause of our being tied down to these life of details, conflicts. And then when we turn to the divine, we do meditation, we ascend forward, we are going closer and closer to ourselves. So he's saying beautiful thing. Jnanam api prakasamayam evaiti kathamasya bandha surupam. When again and again you are saying that Chaitanya is Atma Swarupa, right? So Jnana and Ananda Swarupa. And then how can it be in bondage? How can the sun be in bondage? How can space be in bondage? He's explaining. That is explaining. Jnanam prakasakam sarvam atma chaiva prakashakaha. The Atma is the Swayam Prakasa thing. It lights up everything. And that is Jnana Swarupa. Anayor aprutak bhavad jnane jnani prakasate. Jnana and a jnani. This is what I know. This is my knowledge. This is a lower level of awareness. This is Bhedatmaka jnana. Knowledge of the details of dualities, diversities. The person who is in the deepest state of meditation and self-awareness, is he aware of something? Is he aware that I'm meditation? No, that also doesn't happen to him. He's just in pure state of bliss. The moment he is aware that I'm meditating, he's at a lower stage. Niruda Samadhi, Asamprakyanta Samadhi is at the highest state where there is only pure consciousness. And that pure consciousness, once is guided by the Veda Vakya, we call it moksha. Otherwise, the Sankhya Mata would say that Asampragyata Samadhi is undefined, it's formless, nameless, pure consciousness, unaware of yourself. It's not even thinking about itself. It's pure, self-luminous, blissful self-awareness. The self and the awareness are one reality. It's not awareness of the self. Self is awareness. It's not self-awareness of the self. It's self is awareness. That is what he's trying to say. So, Jnani and Jnana, the knower and his knowledge, is one reality in that ultimate state. Then, the moment it opens the eyes and starts thinking and connects with all the external realities, then the Bheda Pratha starts, and then it becomes limited. Prakasamanam na prithak prakashat, sacha prakaso na prithak vimarshat. That prakasha and vimarsha, they are not different from each other. The Atma and its jnana, they are not different from each other. Then what he's saying, na anyo vimorsha ahamiti swarupad aham swarupa asmi chideka rupa. See, in Trika Darshana, they always say, there is aham idam, there are two pratyayas. Aham is you are, and aham and idam, this whole sansara is around me. I am this. I am Paramashiva. Aham and idam, two aspects are there. And there is perfect awareness. And there's a beautiful thing. And they say, who is Parvati then? He's saying, look, anybody to do anything needs self-awareness. Without self-awareness, you cannot do anything. If you're in sleep, cannot do anything? No. So who is Parvati? Parvati is the self-awareness of Lord Shiva. How beautiful. Shakti is the self-awareness of Lord Shiva. It is that sense of awareness without which he cannot do anything. That is why Shava, without that E, Vija, is Shava. Without Shakti Vija, he becomes Shiva. He is all-powerful. He can create anything. Therefore, in Saundarya Lahari, Shankaracharya says, "Oh Lord, oh Mother, I am worshipping you." Without whose kindness, Lord Shiva can't even move a little. Can't move an inch. It's because of you that he can't do anything. Because at the root of it, you have that Chinmay Satta, you have that self-awareness. That Shakti, that Maya Shakti, with which whole universe is created. Srishti and Sanghara, having said that, they immediately twist the story and say that this, by the way, is a game of Maya. Game of Maya in what sense? Actually, Paramashiva is not creating anything or destroying anything. This is the Leela through which all this is unfolding the way these are unfolding. Jnanam no bhavato vinnam jnayam jnanat prithang nahi ato na tu itarat kinchid tasmad bhedo na vastavaha. Jnana and Gaya, knowledge and the object of knowledge. And then there is a node, these three things, Triputi. Jnata, Jnaya, and Jnana. These three things are there. But they are not different from the node, the process of knowing, and knowledge, an object of knowledge. These are not different from each other. Everything is Paramashiva only. That is what he's trying to say. Therefore, it's not Vastavika. Vastutaha, this duality is not real. Phenomenally, yes, these are different, but fundamentally they are not different. And then, if you look at, for example, the yogis, how do they explain it? The yogis have a different thing. He said that, look, ज्ञानम कुतो मनसि संभवति यह यावत प्राणोपि जीवति मनो म्रियते न तावत प्राणो मनो द्वयम इदम विलयम नयत यो मोक्ष्यम स गच्छति नरः कथंचिदन्य न कथंचिदन्यः. So the yogis, he want to do yoga and meditation. He wants to be in a sense of. So he'll say that doing pranayama, when you are being able to establish and withdraw your mind and unify it, you have that Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna. So if you enter there, your pranavayu enters there, then these vikalpas, the dualities, these confusions, they evaporate. Again, you see, end of the day, they're talking about jnana. You talk about the Kundalini Shakti and other things. So they say that in Muladhara Chakra, at the bottom of it, Muladhare Atma Sakti Kundali Paradevata Saita Bhujagakara Sardha Tri Valayanvita Yavat Sa Nidrita Dehe Tavat Jivam Pasur Yatha Jnanam Najayate Tavat Koti Yogam Samabhyasata. So far is that snake, that Kundalini, what is it? End of the day, that is again Chaitanya Atmaka. This is a story. There is no physical snake out there. So that snake, it's like 3.5. It's coiled there. So far it's sleeping there. We are called Pasu. When it wakes up and goes, moves through the Susamna, hits the Sahasrara, what happens to us? We become self-aware. We are liberated. We are Paramashiva. Until then only we are caught up. That snake is coiled up. That means our consciousness is kind of in a prison. It's in bondage. And there's a beautiful text, this Kularnava Tantra, where there are a few couplets, very powerful, very insightful statements. And I just want to sort of read through some of them. Jnanavan manavah prokta jnanahinam pashu priye. Lord Shiva is telling Parvati, dear one, do you know who is a pasu, who is the animal? The one who knows the truth, he is the real human being. The one who doesn't know is just an animal with a human form. Mokshasya karanam shakhyat tattva jnanam kuleshwari. He's talking about her, Kuleshwari. And there's a whole long explanation on why she's called Kuleshwari in the Kaula Tantra Prakarana. So it's the boss of this whole sadhanas and siddhis and everything. He's saying, look, when a person has the tattva jnana, that is the cause of liberation. Not this tantra sadhana, doing pujas and all, these are fine. Lower level of efforts to elevate oneself. The real thing is tattva jnana. Again, the supremacy of jnana yoga, supremacy of self-awareness is always very strongly emphasized, both in Buddhism, also in our spiritual, paramparas, in the Trika Darshana, in Vedanta, also in Yoga as we shall. Then he's saying, Na Vedadhyanat Muktihir, Na Sastra Pathanadapi, वेद के अध्ययन कर लिए, बड़े अच्छे उच्चारण से हो रहा है, वेद पाठ कर रहे हैं, मोक्ष नहीं मिलेगा. शास्त्र पठनादपि, बहुत सारे पढ़ाई कर लिया शास्त्र, मोक्ष मिल जाएगा उससे. आपने देखा होगा बहुत सारे ज्ञानी लोग बहुत अहंकारी भी होते हैं. और क्या है? ज्ञानात् एव ही मुक्ति स्यात् नान्यथा वीरवंदिते. O mother, you are worshipped by the Veera sadhakas. You are Pasu sadhakas who try to discipline themselves, and the Veeras in Kaula Tantra, they say they are rituals and other things. You are worshipped by them, but do you know, O Divine Mother, only them, only they that are able to realize their self, are aware of that truth, they only get liberated. The rest who do Veda Dhyanas and they do Shastra Dhyanas. The difference between Veda Dhyana and Shastra Dhyana is that in the Veda, you see the Veda parties, they study the Veda, how to chant it. They are Veda parties. If you ask them what is the meaning of it, they will not be able to tell you. Then they go to acharyas and they sit and they understand the meaning of the Vedas. Many of them are Sanskrit professors. They will explain you what is the meaning. In terms of when it comes to ucharanam, they may not be excellent in it. There are two different ball games together. It's like theoretical physics or experimental physics. Then he's saying, na vedaha karanam muktere darsanani na karanam. Na ved karane mukhya ke na darsan karane. A lot of philosophers. Tatheva sava sastrani jnanam eva hi karanam. All shastras are there, but only that realization, that alone is going to liberate us. When that jnana that we have is not vivekataya praptam sadhitam, that becomes bondage. That's why again and again jnanam moksha karanam is explaining, but we are studying jnanam bandha. That means that jnana which is from the vantage point of a pashu or this anuswarupa jiva, that is bandhakara. You have a chicken and egg problem here. Jnana is bondage. To elevate ourselves, we'll do all kinds of things. Again, we'll go back to jnana, which is mokshakara. It's flipping the whole thing. It's like, there's a very powerful statement I read long back. It was written by Emerson. So here he was very prone to depression many times. And he's saying, all this life I was looking at darkness and I was seeing my own shadow. One fine morning I turned back, I saw the sun. You are standing inside a dark room and light is coming into the room through a window or a door, and we are looking away from that door. So we are looking at the walls inside. What do we see? We see our own shadow falling on that wall. We see our shadow. And then suddenly we turn around, then we see the sun. The first instance, when we are looking at our shadow, that stage is jnanam bandha. When we turn around to see the sun, we see ourselves as bright, having whatever features. That is jnana moksha karana. It's all about vantage point, what you are looking at and how you are looking at it. Then he's explaining beautifully, yavat kamadi dipyate tavat sansara vasana, yavat indriya sapalyam tavat tattva katha kutaha. So far your mind is jumping around like a cat on a hot tin roof. So far you have vasanas, you have desires. How can you ever think about tattva katha? To be able to concentrate on something. We are doing satsang, you are doing satsang. Many of your friends should be doing what? Maybe watching TV, maybe talking to somebody, maybe cooking, maybe doing something. So by being able to dissociate it from all that, we can do satsang, isn't it? So far we stay connected with all that. Okay, we are part of the clutter. We are cluttered. Then he's saying, yavat prayatna rogasti. Idam me syat, let me have a car, let me have this necklace, let me have that. You are having raga dvesha, therefore you want to remove something, you want to have something in life. Yavata sankalpa kalpana, I want to achieve it. I mean, then you have all kinds of things. Yavat na manasah staryam, and so far your mind is not sthira. There is no equanimity, there is no stability in it. Tavat tattva katha kutaha. How can that yogi or whosoever he may claim to be, he can sit and do satsang or turn to us, Shiva and Shakti? Would he ever look at us? No. He'll not be able to look at us. Yavat tapo vratam tirtham japo homa archanadikam veda sastra gama katha tavat tattva katha kutaha. This will hurt many of us. You see, he's trying to say, even if we do what, like now, Pitru Pakshi is going on. Those of us, I mean, I'm a sannyasi, I don't do it, but I was doing it. So you have to do daily tarpan. You have to do some shraddha on that particular tithi in which the father has passed away. You'll do some daridra bhojana or whatever, brahmana bhojana, you do this. Yavat tapo, then you do tapasya, I'll do fasting. And brata, I want to go and do this Navaratra brata. Tirtham, I will go to Ajodhya and Kashi and Ganga and all that. Japa Homer Chana, and I'll do this much of chanting, and then I'll do this Homam, and I'll do Archana, this Adikam. So far, you are trapped in this external way of connecting with the divinities. These are Sahakaris. But one day you have to go beyond that. Therefore, he's saying, Veda Sastra Gama Katha. Oh, right now we are doing Agama Katha only. See? The text is saying, so far you are at this level, you're reading Vedas, Shastras, Agamas. Tavat Tattva Katha Kutaha. So what is that Tattva? Tattva. Like for example, if you have Manushya, what is the Manushya Dharma? Manushyatva. What is Tattva? Tat is that Brahman. Tattva is that Sachidananda Swarupa. Tattva is that Dharma which is associated with the word Sachidananda Swarupa. Tattva Katha. Knowing about that, thatness of that is Tattva. How do you ever access that? So, Maheshwaranand, for example, says it's a very beautiful text. Malini Vijaya Tantra is saying, Swarupa avabodha hi jnanam ityuchate priye Swarupa Rupa Brahmo Devi Vikalpaha Bhavasangyakaha. Now, this is the trick. It's like a sharp nail, right? It's hitting exactly at the point. What is he trying to say? Swarupa Ababodha, being aware of our essential nature. Swarupa Ababodha, understanding of what is our real nature. We are human beings. Somebody is Brahmin, somebody is Kshatriya, somebody. Is it our Swarupa? Somebody is an American, somebody is an Italian. Is it our Swarupa? Somebody is a human being, somebody is an animal. Is that our Swarupa? He's saying, get rid of all these names and forms. That Sat Swarupa that we are, which is without a name and a form. He's saying, Swarupa, Swaswarupa Vadho, being aware of Swaswarupa. What is my Atma Swarupa? Tasya Atma Swarupasya Ababodha Hi Jnanam. That is real knowledge. That is knowledge proper. Capital K. Iti Uchyate Priye, oh my darling. That's what is pure knowledge. What else? Swarupa, Rupa, Swaswarupa, Brahmo Devi. So, one story, one of my acharyas, very kind acharyas, Santi Dharmananji keeps telling in Rishikesh that what happens once is that one boss, he had gone out, and then some of his friends played some prank. We are coming to the timeline. I'll just wind it up this story, very interesting. So he had a servant, he was an old person, children are all abroad or gone somewhere. So he went out for a dinner, and some of his friends wanted to play some prank on him and gave him some alcohol, mixed some wine or something with his drinks. He had it. And when he came, he used to have a stick. He had a walking stick. Then he goes in, then he puts that walking stick on the bed, and he treats that walking stick as zamindar, as boss. Sir, so jaiye. Then he stands in the corner of that room. He is playing out the role of his own servant attendant. साहब सोए हुए हैं, साहब आज बहुत अच्छे से सो रहे हैं, उनको थोड़ा थोड़ा भोज में जाना चाहिए, बहुत थक गए हैं. He's talking to himself. Then the attendant comes in. Sir, क्या हुआ? Then he's saying, Sir, what happened? He's saying, नहीं, साहब सो रहे हैं, disturb ना करना. जाओ अपने कमरे में जाओ, साहब सो रहे हैं. This is a beautiful thing. Atmani Anatma Buddhi and Anatmani Atma Buddhi. That stick has become the Jamidar. And he has become the servant standing in the corner. And look at this beautiful situation. That's about us. We don't care for who we actually are. We don't have any compassion, respect, love for our own Swarupa. We have Swarupa Brahma. Mujhe ye bol diya. I have to do this and that. And despite all these, it's quite possible that after the satsang, again sansar will encircle us, and then we'll go back to the details of our lives. Again and again, we'll go and come back. That's what also done in Siva Sutra. Don't you lose heart. Of course, you will forget. So what? Return to it. So therefore, he's saying in a beautiful way, Swaswarupo Brahmo Devi Vikalpaha Bhavasangyakaha. Sansara is all about Vikalpas. When we have Vikalpas, Sansara is born. You are in meditation. You are in a pure state of being. The moment you have Vikalpas, I want this, I want that, this, that, Sansara enters into us. So with this, I'll bring this to a close and we'll conclude this mantra, this sutra tomorrow with a bit of additional explanation tomorrow. Any questions? We can have 2-3 minutes on this if anybody has any questions. Or we can do the Santi mantras. No questions? Okay. So let's do the Santi mantras. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate